this video, we'll give you the best wide receiver to target in the 5th round of 2024 Fantasy Redraft Leagues. I'm Jim Coventry with Anthony Cervino of Rotowire.
Jim, the first receiver we are going to talk about, one of my guys this year, George Pickens of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pickens has been in the NFL 2 years, and he's flashed exceptional talent despite subpar quarterback play. Things are going to change this year, whether it's Russell Wilson under center all year or if we see Justin Fields. I believe this is a massive quarterback upgrade for George Pickens, who can do a lot of things on his own. You have to remember, he had 18.1 yards per reception last year. Now, that's a number that might be unsustainable, but we know he's a playmaker. And when it comes to Justin Fields, if anybody's worried if it was Justin Fields, you have to remember, DJ Moore, a player who always had the talent, he finally had his breakout year with Justin Fields last year in Chicago. So we know Justin Fields has it in him to support an elite fantasy weapon. Now, George Pickens, 106 targets last year. Can we expect more in an Arthur Smith offense? I have some questions about that. But even if he hovered around that target category, if the efficiency from the quarterback is improved the way I think it will be, especially if it's Russell Wilson, I do think we see a more efficient and more productive George Pickens. Last year, Pickens, he was 61st amongst qualified wide receivers in catchable target rate and 43rd in target quality rating. If those numbers significantly improve, and they can, I think the sky's the limit for George Pickens, who was 10th in the NFL last year in deep targets. And we know Russell Wilson likes to fire him deep.
Amari Cooper of the Cleveland Browns, another player in this range we need to look at. And I point this out. Cooper's been with the Browns for 2 years. In those 2 years, and significant quarterback issues on that team, Cooper is still averaging 75 grabs, 1,205 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Those are numbers that you'd get from a late 3rd round, early 4th round fantasy player, and yet Cooper goes in the 5th round. Now, some people will say, oh man, Deshaun Watson's a quarterback. Joe Flacco was there last year. Don't forget, Cooper was very, very good with Watson. The duo played 5 games together. In 4 of those games, Cooper hit at least 90 yards 4 times. And the targets only hit double-digit targets once, so he was not being force-fed. Cooper's going into his age 30 season. He has not shown signs of slowing down. He is a clear alpha in this offense. This is a very well schemed-up offense by Kevin Stefanski. Cooper's going to continue to see the lion's share of targets in this offense, regardless of who else is there. Overall, Cooper's playing, again, it's a high level, and he got paid. He just got money added to his contract, so we have no issues there. A happy player, a good situation, and he could have the best season of his career. If you enjoy videos like this, please consider hitting the like button and subscribe to the Rotowire Fantasy Football channel on YouTube. Also, you can check out all of our fantasy football content and rankings by getting a free 2-day trial with no credit card needed. Just head on over to rotowire.com/Jim, and you can check out all of our content.
Jim, next we're going to talk about Christian Kirk. And Christian Kirk is a player who broke out 2 years ago when he signed with the Jacksonville Jaguars. He was a wide receiver 18 in points per game in 2022, stayed healthy, played in full 17, 133 targets, 84 receptions, over 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns. Last year, he took a little bit of a step back. Now, injury did play a role. He only played in 12 games. And there was also the presence of Calvin Ridley, who was a little bit disappointing in fantasy. We also saw Trevor Lawrence try to force him to football. This upcoming season, there is no more Ridley. They did bring in Gabe Davis, but I don't believe Gabe Davis is a challenge to Christian Kirk or his target share. I believe Davis is going to be that deep, big play threat, more of that Zay Jones type of role. Now, Calvin Ridley, his role could potentially be filled by rookie Brian Thomas Jr. And we all love the rookies, but he is still a player who is yet to play in the NFL, in this system, or with this quarterback. And he could take some time to get going. As long as Christian Kirk is healthy, he should be the most targeted player on this football team for Trevor Lawrence. These two have an existing rapport. And if Christian Kirk, again, injuries are a big concern, if he can stay on the football field, I don't know. Again, this is another player I worry about his ceiling. But we know Christian Kirk in PPR has one of the highest floors of all fantasy receivers.
All right, rank them out.
For me, This gets a little bit tough with these three players, but by far, George Pickens is my number one out of these three players when it comes to his ceiling and where I'm drafting this type of wide receiver in the fifth round. I want to hit a home run, and there's nothing against Cooper or Kirk, but George Pickens has the highest ceiling, at least to me, of all three of these players. Number two, I will go Amari Cooper because of these three players, he's the only one that brings a high floor. And if we get a step up from Deshaun Watson, Amari Cooper can also bring a high ceiling. Now, I don't know if his ceiling is high as George Pickens. I think if George Pickens, if everything works, top 15, top 12 receiver in points per game. But when it comes to Cooper, I can certainly see if everything works and we get a healthy and improved Deshaun Watson, he could be a top 15 receiver compared to where we're drafting him. And then we have Christian Kirk. I don't see any type of a ceiling at all for Christian Kirk. There's just way too many factors. I talk about how much I love his floor, but if the ceiling's going to be capped, I don't know if there's touchdown upside here when we factor in other components in this offense, especially Travis Etienne, who's spoon-fed inside the red zone. Jim, what does your rankings look like?
Yeah, the problem is I can't get all three of these guys. That's the problem. Yeah. I'd love to have all three of them. They're all going about the same round, so you pretty much get one. You might get lucky and get two, depending on the draft rate. I do have Cooper at the top. I do think that 1,200 yards per season, that is a gold standard number for this stage of the draft. And Pickens hasn't hit 1150 yet, right around there. And I believe it. The talent is amazing. I like the fact that he's going to be an alpha, which he has been, but he hasn't done it yet. So I'm going to go with the guy who has done it, Cooper first. Pickens is close second, and I do see what you see. He can have a ceiling, but I like that combination of both. I like to have the floor with the potential for the ceiling, and that's why Pickens is two. Like you, Kirk is number three. I do love him, but I don't think he has access to the ceiling of Cooper or Pickens, and I think Kirk's floor is right about where the other two are.